Cardinals today. Well, Arizona Cardinals today. Again, first time tuning in, what we do, we go across the entire NFL. We go over the 2024 season, go over the 2025 offseason. Then we give our prediction for what we think is going to happen for this 2025 season. So to start, the 2024 season record for the Arizona Cardinals was 8-9, third in the NFC West. They unfortunately did not make the playoffs. They led the division halfway through the season at 6-4, but then a late season collapse, losing 4 of the last 5, including that overtime loss to the Carolina Panthers, where a white practice squad wide receiver cooked Buda Baker across the middle to kind of seal it was either a third or a fourth down. That just made me absolutely sick. So I'd say if you were to ask everybody last offseason what they thought about the Arizona Cardinals, I think that they would have probably said that they were going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, just based off of how the tone of what everybody was thinking. And I think although the late season collapse happened and it wasn't ideal, I think that it's still, they were ahead of schedule almost a little bit in a way, even though, like after somebody has a good season, everybody kind of forgets what they had predicted for them before, like after the season is the completion of the season happened. You know what I'm trying to say. Sorry.
It's what have you done for me lately? Have you had a good season or not? Yeah.
But I think obviously having Kyler back truly mattered. Just some quick stats real quick of the DVOA breakdown for the 2024 season. Total DVOA, they ranked 12th in the NFL. They were 29th in 2023, which makes sense because Kyler was out for almost the whole year. Offensive DVOA, they were 11th, and then defensive DVOA, they were 18th. One thing I wanted to point out about this defense last season, there was like a stretch where they didn't like allow a touchdown like in the second half. And it was the Detroit game. It was the Detroit game. I forget the Chargers game. I forget who it was, the Chicago Bears and the New York Jets.
It started with Detroit. Yes. And went to it was Detroit, Washington, San Francisco.
No, they got smoked by Washington.
I'm sorry, I was looking at the Cardinals second half, and that's not even accurate, so I'm lying. Just ignore me.
Yeah, so again, to start out the season, they lost by 6 to the Buffalo Bills. Very tight game. They lost by 6 to the Detroit Lions. Another tight game. Then they got blown out by the Commanders, obviously. Blown out by the Packers. And then the rest of the year, a 16-6 loss to the Seattle Seahawks. 23-22 loss to the Minnesota Vikings. They kind of got smoked by the Seattle Seahawks. I talked about the OT loss to the Panthers, kind of inexcusable when you look back at it. And then a 13-9 loss to the Los Angeles Rams. Good season for the Arizona Cardinals, in my opinion. I think that a few things that I took away when we were going over them is, obviously, I feel like you have a defense who, when you look at who their roster was on paper, their depth chart, like on paper last year, to be at 18th and almost at the middle of the pack, I feel like that's pretty, like that's great, because that defense had no business putting them in a lot of those games. And then when you look at the offense, it feels like Kyler Murray hate is heavy, obviously, because he is inconsistent. But I think last year he put together one of his best seasons from start to finish since he started his career in the NFL. And I like that building into this season with the weapons that they're adding. A few other things too that I want to highlight, and then you can go in as well. Trey McBride's an absolute superstar. I mean, he's going to be really good for a really long time. James Conner is like the model of consistency. And again, I just think that I know that people don't like Marvin Harrison Jr. right now, but I feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. had a pretty promising rookie season going into year 2 with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, starting with the defensive side of the ball and just my thoughts on the Arizona Cardinals last year versus 2023. A 4 game difference. So in 2023 they were 4-13. Last year they were 8-9. Like that's a pretty good jump. And they were in a lot of these football games and were a couple plays here and there from say winning 2 or 3 additional games and being a playoff team and having the conversation around the Cardinals be a little bit different than what it probably currently is right now. You get a bounce your way in that Panthers game, you end up at 9-8. You get a bounce your way in that Rams game, you're 10-7. Like it's just a couple plays here and there that kept this team out of the playoffs, and they played better defensively than I think a lot of people expected. And I expect their defense to take another jump because I think they had a really good offseason. But we can talk to that when we get there. But yeah, I think the Cardinals are trending in the right direction. They have some key pieces on both sides of the football moving forward. And I think you did it. I think you touched on it well. Trey McBride, probably the best tight end in the NFL, if not top 3. Um, Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't have like the season that the Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas or Lad McConkey had, but for um, a rookie receiver that is, I guess, technically not the number one option as of right now on his team, he had a pretty good season. So I expect him to build on that. I expect him to take a jump this season, and
Definitely.
everybody that was down on him, I will buy all of your stock.
Yeah, I will as well. I just think that there's no reason to not like what he did last year. I obviously think him and Kyler have some chemistry things that they're going to work out, and it seems like they have been working on that this offseason, just paying attention. So yeah, I like that. One other thing that I want to highlight too is this: they have an extremely strong ground game. They were 7th in rushing yards per
Mhm.
game, 8th in first down rushing percentage, and 2nd in yards per rush at 5.3 yards per carry. Um, Obviously Kyler is a threat on the ground with his feet, but like I said, James Conner just seems to he's one of those guys who just seem to be able to turn back the clock. And I think a big uh knock on him is maybe like availability, let's say. And he played in 16 games last season. So I like to see that. He played in 13 in 2023, 13 in 2022. I like that he played almost a full season last year. Yeah,
Yeah, he's kind of turned back the clock since he's gotten to Arizona. He's been really consistent when he's been playing. Um, and it's been like a quiet career in Arizona for him because maybe just because it's Arizona, I don't necessarily know, but he's been a very solid running back for the few seasons that he's been there, and I feel like he just goes under talked about and almost underappreciated because he's been really good.
I completely agree with that. Let's get into the 2025 offseason since we highlighted that 2024 season. My takeaway from it is looking back, do you want some of those games back? Absolutely. There's some games that are left on that field that you're like, damn, we could have actually made the playoffs last season. There was a real chance to win that division last year, and we kind of had it slip through our fingers. So I think from that aspect, like it is frustrating, but also at the same time, being one of those teams that everybody was sleeping on going into the season, saying like they weren't going to be that good. I feel like they played well above expectation, and like I said, I think the biggest thing that I want to highlight of them all is Kyler playing all 17 games, being healthy for all 17 games, and actually putting together a complete season from start to finish. Was it the highs every week that you want? no, but that was a big trend in the right direction for Kyler coming off of his knee injury and coming back halfway through last year. You wanted to see him have a full healthy season. So shout out to Kyler.
Yeah, and I just wanted to highlight one of the better performances that he had. Week 2 versus the Rams, he was 17 for 21, 266 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, it's a pretty good day at the office. And then Marv had one of his biggest games of the season that week too, 4 catches, 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think that could probably be why some people were disappointed with the way that his season went, because he started out hot. And it's like, oh, this guy had 4 catches and 2 of them were touchdowns in week 2. Like, he's just going to continue to do this and set the world on fire, when realistically that's not that isn't really the case with how a lot of these guys go per se. Like, we have seen some like anomalies the last few years. It feels like from a rookie wide receiver standpoint. Um, like Malik Neighbors had a crazy year. Brian Thomas, Puka Nakua a few years back. Like Jamar Chase, we've seen some really crazy rookie seasons, and the bar is so high that it almost makes it look like a season like Marv's was bad.
Yeah.
And I think that we just need to like take a step back and realize that the seasons that we've been seeing recently from some of these guys are just that insane. And just because you aren't putting up 15, 14, 1,300 yards your rookie year, like, doesn't mean you're a bad wide receiver.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. And um you need room to grow ultimately at the end of the day. And we've talked about it multiple times. I didn't really love the way that they used Marvin last year,
Yeah.
like where it was just like a lot of contested catch scenarios. And it, I not saying that I don't think that he should come down with those sort of plays. I think he should, but when you're just like you need a guy to like warm up a little bit and be in the zone, like it felt like every opportunity that they had to kind of go to him and like have him make a play, it felt like very clunky in my opinion, where it was like, okay, like let's go to Marv here on a contested a back shoulder catch on the sideline. It was like, well, he hasn't had a target the entire game, and that was the first target that he had. I would like to see them kind of like work in a little bit of more of like easy catches on his end, like some slants, some curls, like whatever, and just allow him to create as
Diggs. Yeah.
well
Things are,
because
yeah.
I just feel like that isn't the best. I think he can make those sort of plays, but like you said, like this is his first year as a professional. Like let's give him some layups as well because there's nothing wrong with making things easier for a young player.
Yeah. And I also think the style of wide receiver that he is, like, he can make those catches, those contested catches, but he's probably closer to a Justin Jefferson, where he's just like a clean, smooth route runner, and rather than like a go up and get it guy like Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think?
I think that that is his strength. I would say like Jamar Chase like is more of like after the catch demon where you can give him the
Yeah,
ball behind the line of scrimmage and have him go for 50, 60 yards or whatever. I think that like where you're going to be able to get the most out of Marv is like in the intermediate and downfield.
yeah, yeah.
So
That's what I think as well. But yeah, I think we should just take a chill pill on some of these guys that don't come
on
in
the
right away.
Marvin Harrison Jr. hate and anybody's
Yeah,
honestly. But
yeah.
all right, the
He's gonna be jacked
2025,
now this year.
yeah, his arms are big. The 2025 offseason, do you have the roster losses of who they got rid of this year?
I do. So they lost Kaiser White, Will Hernandez. That's a guy that, like, what a
He's
crazy journey
back.
for that guy. Is he?
Yeah, he's back.
Okay. But either way, that doesn't so what? He was the guy that was drafted by the Giants in the first round a while back from UTEP, right? Is that who I'm thinking of?
He's from UTEP in the second round.
Yeah. Yeah, and, I'm pretty sure he had pretty high expectations even for like a second round guy, but either way, Matt Prater, Roy Lopez, Dennis Gardeck, Kahiri Tonga, Naquan Jones, Tristan Colon, and Zach Pascal are the losses. If I'm missing
Nobody
any.
No, nobody that I really am that upset about. Like you said, you got Will Hernandez back.
Yeah.
Really, I think what's to highlight about this offseason is some of the additions that they made on this team in free agency and through the draft, because I think that they had maybe the most under discussed off seasons out of anybody across the board. It just feels like they upgraded very heavy. Um, they got Jacoby Brissett as a backup quarterback. Clayton Tune stinks, so thank God that they finally figured out that backup quarterback situation. And then on this defensive line, where when you look at what happened last season to them and how weak and how thin this position was, you now look at their depth chart. It's Josh Sweat, Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson, Darius Robinson, Walter Nolan, Jordan Birch, Baron Browning, Zaven Collins, BJ Ojolari. I'm looking at a room where the defensive line, like a Calais Campbell, Walter Nolan, Dalvin Tomlinson, that's gonna be those are big boys. Those are guys who are going to be able to clog up the middle. But then when you look at their edge rushing group, Zaven Collins, they've turned into an edge rusher. I like him on like situational type of pass rush situations, kind of like a Bryce Huff guy.
Mhm.
Baron Browning came from the Broncos. He's a good player. BJ Ojolari, he's from LSU. He's healthy now. That's a great 3-man unit. And then on the other side, last year's first round pick, Darius Robinson, which if you look at him, he is legitimately massive. And then Dante Stills. And then I would say Jordan Birch is probably an edge rusher too. A group of guys who were a unit of this team, their defensive line and edge rushing group, who was so thin last year and so bad, you automatically look at this roster and it's like, wow, this is a massive, massive strength for them now.
Yeah, they have some legitimate depth at defensive line, and I think that probably goes back to just the style that um, Jonathan Gannon kind of wants to run. Like when he was in Philly, they had a pretty deep defensive line, and it worked out pretty well for them. So I think he's kind of taking that mentality here to Arizona. At least that's what it looks like for this season. But yeah, this defensive line is going to be scary. You talked about Walter Nolan. That was a guy that I really liked coming out of Ole Miss. I think he's going to be a demon on this defensive line, and he's probably not even. He doesn't even have to feel the pressure of coming in and starting right away because I think they have such good depth. And then you add Josh Sweat, who um, fresh out of a Super Bowl was one of the best pass rushers on a Super Bowl defensive line. So like I think that this D line is going to be scary.
Yeah, it's going to be scary, and I like the addition of they have a bunch of young guys, and then incorporating a bunch of older veterans who've played in a ton of big
Yep.
games. I think that that's going to matter throughout the course of a season. Uh, just to highlight a little bit more of this defense too, like Mac Wilson Sr., like I've heard nothing but good things about him. He's going to be the green dot for the defense this year. He's apparently balling out. Like Andrew said to me, like this guy is like he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. He's been balling out so hard. Like obviously that's an extreme, but they like what they have seen from him. Like he's
Yeah.
stepping up a ton. So I like to hear that. And then the safeties, Jalen Thompson, Buda Baker. I like both of those guys. They're good players. Obviously, Buda is a bigger name. I think Jalen Thompson's a little underrated. And then Max Melton and Garrett Williams. Garrett Williams is he's going to be one of those names that at the end of the season, people are going to really notice how talented he is. He played really well last year, and I think he's going to continue to get better. And then the guy that slipped to them in the second round, which he was projected a first round pick. Me and you were really high on him going when we
One of the
talked about
best
the
corners
draft.
coming out of the draft.
They got Will Johnson in the second round, and it really feels like, based off of all the reports that you hear from like the Arizona Cardinals this offseason, is he's like a real guy, and he's going to be like a real cornerback one for them, like automatically, like year one. So I really, really love what they did this offseason through the draft and through free agency, because they got Walter Nolan, and we will highlight the draft too real quick. I think it's just good to highlight the first three picks because I think that they're going to play for them. Walter Nolan is a elite disruptor along defensive line. The Cardinals went and got him. I was like, I wanted the Cardinals to get Will Johnson with the first. Then we go back to pick to the 47th pick in the second round, and Will Johnson's sitting there, and they go and grab Will Johnson, and then in the third round they get Jordan Birch, who's just a I think that he could be a, a pass rusher, obviously, but like in situational, like passing situations. But I absolutely love what they did in the draft this year. I didn't feel like they needed to do anything on offense. I feel like on the offensive side of the football, everything's handled. It's just about making that click and everything work together. That's kind of what they figured out last year when they got Marvin Harrison Jr. And then, like you said, Gannon needs his defense. That's a strength of his. That's why he got hired as a head coach. So let's get him a bunch of guys. And I feel like this defense has a bunch of dudes on it.
Yeah, I think so too. Who did you say the guy was that's wearing the green dot?
Mac Wilson Sr.
Was he there last year?
Yeah.
Okay. Did he start for them last year, or was he just like a
Yes.
rotational guy?
He started for them.
Okay. Yeah, I just wasn't sure because what I
I
was looking
forget
at
what game
here.
it was. I forget what game it was. I think it was against the Seahawks, maybe. I forget what game it was, but he had a pick six and they just like overturned it for no reason. He was
There.
very good for them last season. So but go ahead.
Oh well, no. What I was just gonna say was what I'm looking at. It has one, two, three, four, five, six, seven new guys potentially starting on this defensive line for the Cardinals, which is a lot of new faces. So my only pushback is just there might be a little time to get that unit gelling defensively. I think it's different though with the offense. I think you need a little bit more cohesion on the offensive side of the ball, but
Do you think that it matters at all that like you have like consummate pros almost at this like when I look at some of the new names like on defense, obviously you have the rookies like Will Johnson and Walter Nolan, but like Josh Sweat played
yeah,
with him for a long time. He's like a guy who's been around forever. Calais Campbell's been in the league forever. Dalvin Tomlinson's been in the league forever. Do you think that even the guys who they brought in the building, do you think that they could kind of transition in seamlessly just because of, like I said, they're like consummate pros?
I think if it was maybe like one, another one or two guys, maybe here or there, I think with the addition of the rookies, I think it'll take a few games, but when I say a few, I'm talking probably like 2 to 3 and not nearly like 5 or 6. I think by week 4 this defense should be humming. And,
I think that's
and
fair.
to be fair, too, just looking at the offenses that they're going against these first 6 weeks, they really don't
We'll get
need to
into it. We'll get
necessarily
into it. We'll get
okay.
into it because I'm with you on this. So real quick, before we start doing all of that, what is your grade on the Arizona Cardinals offseason on like for this year?
I mean, now that we've sat down and really looked through it, I think it's been significantly underrated. For some reason, the Cardinals just like don't get talked about on like national media, but I think we were texting about it on draft night. I wanted Walter Nolan in Philadelphia, and we were both really high on Will Johnson. And the fact that they were able to get two guys that could come in and be like legitimate cornerstone pieces for your defense for the next handful of years is great. As long as everything clears with Will Johnson, which I haven't heard a single thing about any injury issues that he's had in training camp or anything. Like it was basically there was concerns on draft night and then a week later they were gone. So I take that as he's full go and on top of bringing those two guys in on defense, you bring in Josh Sweat and you bring in some experience in Calais Campbell and Dalvin Tomlinson, and I think you're in a good spot. I agree with you. I don't really think they needed to add much on offense. I like bringing in Jacoby Brissett as like a backup quarterback. You know what you're going to get with him, and he's played in the NFL for however many years. But I think they had a really great offseason that I think is underappreciated by um, sports media per se.
Yeah, everyone. All right, well, let's get into some of the Vegas win totals here. Their over under is 8.5 wins. I don't know. I think that that's crazy, but it is what it is. For the Super Bowl, they're plus 4,000, and to win the NFC is plus 2,500. What is your immediate opinion on the win total?
My immediate thought is I think it goes over. Um, I I look at the way that their schedule lays out for them. The back half is more difficult than the first probably 12 games, but if you can go into the back half of this season or the last quarter of it realistically and snag 2 3 games, I think you can find yourself at 10 or 11, like 10 wins, 11 wins maybe, depending on how well you play in that first half of the season. And I fully expect this defense to be even better than they were last year, and they went through a stretch where they didn't give up a touchdown in the second half. So um, I think if they can get this offense dialed in, I think the Cardinals are going to take another step forward.
I have a proposition for you, and it is on the AP NFL regular season MVP. And I say this because I think that his odds are absolutely ridiculous. Kyler Murray is sitting at plus 5,000. And some guys who have some better odds than him: Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, some guys who you know that they're really not going to have a chance to win the MVP this year. And I'm saying, let me talk you into this because you look back at the 2021 season when the Cardinals opened up the year 7-0, and then they go and they lose to the Packers and go to 7-1. They right before their bye, they were 9-2, and they after that Green Bay game, Kyler went down with an ankle injury. Up to that point, Kyler was the front runner to win MVP. He was
Yeah.
absolutely balling out, doing his thing. And I think that when you look at his game and what he's capable of, somebody who I'm looking at some of his stats right now. In 2020, he rushed for 11 touchdowns. Somebody who has the upside to be able to run the football at the rate that he does, and he's got a group of I feel like a little underrated pass catchers at this point. I think that those odds are just absolutely ridiculous, and we're going to talk about the schedule this a little bit, but in a little bit, but I feel like their schedule going into this season might be a little bit of a layup to allow him to become a front, not an immediate front runner, but somebody who's discussed a little bit more than just being like at the bottom of the pack to potentially win MVP. I feel like he could be somebody who could be like in the top 5 after their first like 7-week run.
Yeah, I think we'll just say week 8 because that's their bye. We'll just use that as like the marking point. But like there is a world where they win where they're 5-2, 6-1 come week 8 of the regular season. And if his numbers are what I think they would need to be for them to start off that well, then like it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's in that discussion through the first 8 weeks of the season.
My only hesitancy with that is if this defense is really as good as I think that it's going to be, do they play a style of football where it's like, we're going to grind you out on defense. We
Yeah.
know that we have one of the best running games in football, and maybe Kyler won't put up those sort of stats needed to be able to be the MVP. Kind of play that brand of football that you see the really successful teams across the NFL play. Like I almost kind of think of like the Eagles a little bit. Like, are they going to play like
Yeah.
the Philadelphia Eagles? I think that that's probably a possibility as well.
I completely agree with you. I think truly, if we're being selfish and we want to see Kyler win the MVP, then obviously we wouldn't want that. But for the sake of the Cardinals, if that is their style of play this season and that defense is just on fire, I think there is a realistic situation where we could see that happen for them because they're very strong running the football. They have a good run game, and like you don't necessarily need to do too much if your defense is going out there and just putting the clamps down. And for this number to be 8.5, like you get through that first 8 weeks, you're playing really good defense. You figured out the style that you wanna play on offense. Like it could easily go over that.
I agree. Let's get into this into our just some schedule review stuff, and then before we do that, like we talked about, we hinted at the schedule a little bit. I mean, they open up with the Saints. I love that. Obviously, the Saints stink.
Yeah.
Then you have
Well, wait, are we
Carolina.
sure? The Saints were bad last year and they started out hot as hell.
No, I'm putting my flag on it. They stink. The Panthers the next week. I like the Panthers. I think that they're going to be a little bit better than this year, but this is going to be a game. That's a game that they lost last year on the road. They're at home. First home game of the year against Carolina with the team that knocked them out of playoff contention last year. That's a game that you have to go and win. I like them in that spot. Then you have San Francisco. I like catching San Francisco in the beginning of the year like this on the road when they are dismantled. I mean, I listened
Yeah.
to Shanahan talk this morning being like, yeah, like if you like, I know the fans are upset. Like, how do you think I feel? Like, this is a lot. This is a lot to go through. So even they're acknowledging how beat up and injured they are. So I think that's something obviously to highlight as well. Then you go Seattle. I feel like that game's a little bit of a toss up, but they're at home for that. And then, so I'm going to give them the win for that. And then you have Tennessee at home. You would think, unless if Tennessee just is like one of those teams who finally get that rookie quarterback and then take the next
Yeah.
step, I feel like we can expect to win that game. Then you're at Indianapolis. Indianapolis might be a dumpster fire this year. And then you have Green Bay, which is obviously a super tough game. I'm going to that game. I mentioned that already, but
Yep.
that's something that I would obviously keep an eye on. That could be a tipping point in the season for them where you could potentially go into that game with no losses or one loss and have an opportunity to put Green Bay away right before the bye. I love the way that they're starting out this season. I feel like it's a very favorable schedule. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm looking at their weekly betting lines here, and obviously these are subject to change, but they're favorited in 5 of those first 7 games. And that
Wow.
game against Green Bay, they're only an underdog by 1.5 points, and um, in San Francisco, they're an underdog by 3.5 points. So like two
Interesting.
easily manageable games where it's not like, oh, we don't stand a chance here. But um, yeah, I just think too that that division is so wide open with um Matt Stafford is they killed Matt Stafford. Um the Seattle Seahawks now have Sam Darnold as their quarterback, which leaves a lot of questions as can he do what he did in Minnesota in a different system? And then um the Niners just with this injury bug that just they can't seem to get away from the last year and a half. So um, on paper, I like the Cardinals a lot in these this first 8 game stretch.
Yeah, it's like I said, I feel like it's pretty favorable. I'd like them to kind of get ahead of the 8 ball a little bit and be able to kind of get out on a win streak. And obviously, the back half of the season is a story, and we can talk about that too. And they're going to have to win some of these games as well. They're at Dallas, at Seattle, again, home versus San Francisco, home versus Jacksonville, at Tampa Bay. home versus the Rams, at Houston, home against the Atlanta Falcons, at Cincinnati, and then at the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, that's a serious back half schedule there. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not anything to snub your nose at. So I'm excited to watch them see if they can take that momentum, start the season hot, have that bye week, kind of rest up, get going, which I love that they have this bye week kind of in the middle of the season. Well, not kind of, it is in the middle of the season, and then get ready for that second half of the season run. I think that looking at this, I also like the over as well, but you never know. I think we wouldn't be doing it justice. I'm a massive Kyler Murray fan, as everybody knows, if you watch this channel, as our friends know, and you know as well.
Mhm.
If he does not take this team to the playoffs this year, he's gone. And I think that that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that he's been given more than enough time. I think he's been given more than enough resources. And although I personally think Kyler is like the definition of having like a franchise quarterback, I think he's like a model citizen. I think he does a really good job. I think at a point, like if he's not able to even get you into the wild card round, I feel like you have to kind of sit there and reevaluate on some things and see if that's a position that you could upgrade. So I think that this is a little do or die for Kyler Murray this season.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you what you thought about it, but I completely agree. He's had some injuries, and when he has been healthy, there's been ups and downs. But I think that realistically, you are correct with when you say he has to at least they have to make a playoff game here this season, or he's out. Um, and they would probably it would have to be they'd have to trade him because his contract does go until 2028, but they do have an out at the end of the 2027 season. Um, but
I think that they would have an easy time moving Kyler. I think
oh
that
no,
if
no, that's what
Kyler was
I was
on the
just gonna say.
market, yeah.
I was just gonna say I think that there would be a handful of teams that would sign up to bring Kyler Murray on to play quarterback for them.
Yeah, I think so too. I think like the Steelers, the Jets, like I think they would be if
Yeah,
Kyler
they'll
was
bring in
available
anybody.
next
So
offseason, they'd be hype.
yeah, and I
But
don't say they'll bring in anybody as a bad thing, but those two teams will bring any quarterback in. Kyler Murray is significantly better than any of those guys that either one of those teams has brought in to play quarterback since Mark Sanchez and Ben Roethlisberger 4 years before he turned into a statue.
yeah, literally.
So
Um I'm right with you though. I get it. I don't want like as like I like the Cardinals, and Kyler is one of the reasons that I really like the Cardinals. I've liked Kyler since he's been in college. I'm just a big fan of his. So I don't want to see him go to a different team. I like him on the Cardinals, but I think that that's a fair assessment to have about where he is in his career right now. It's like, hey, this is the team. Like this is
yeah,
the team right now. Like I don't think that I mean, obviously I think a lot of teams our goal is the Super Bowl, obviously. Like and I think that that is probably a goal of theirs, but I think like like if you were to be like deep down, if you ask somebody, it's like, well, if we could make the playoffs and like win a one playoff game, that is like a plus season. Do you agree with
yeah.
that, or do you think you need more than that?
No, I think we talked about this the other day, but I think that aside from like five teams, your goal should be to win and compete for a Super Bowl. But the goal, like other goals, probably way heavier than that if you are a handful of like the rest of the league, right? So making a playoff game is gonna weigh more and mean more and should be the goal, like should be the stepping stone, right? So obviously the Cardinals are going to want to compete for a Super Bowl, but they haven't made the playoffs in how many years? Five, four?
2021 was the last time they made the playoffs.
Yeah, so it's been 4 years going on 5. So I think that you just got to take that first step because the 2022 they've been 4-13, 2023 they were 4-13. They took a great jump this last season, going 8-9. Like it's time to take that next step. It's time to be a playoff team, and I think this is the year they do it. Because of what I talked about earlier and all the questions that are in that division. I think they have the least amount of questions.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's get into our 2025 predictions. Um, I said this the other day when we were talking about the Rams, and it holds true to this as well because it's just the same division. Like nobody in this division is running away with it as of right now. It's going to be tight.
Yeah.
It's going to come down probably to the wire. So I don't see why there should be such favorable odds for one team or the other where like the Cardinals are like plus 400 to win the division. It's like okay, like that's a little weird. Especially like you said, there's so many question marks around certain teams like the San Francisco 49ers with their health. We went over it with the Rams where it was like, okay, like we like the offense, but like could the defense be a question mark? Is if Matt Stafford takes one hit to the back, like is their season on pause? Like you just never know. And even if they are fully healthy, the Rams were fully healthy last season and they want like with Stafford, obviously they had every other injuries. Every team has injuries, and they only won 10 games. So I think that that's something to kind of keep in mind when you're thinking about this division. And I just don't see why there's any reason why the Cardinals can't win this division. I had them winning 12 games when I went over their schedule before, but I'm just going to have them winning 11 games. I'm going to taper it down a little bit, but I do like them to win this division this year. I just feel like they're extremely slept on. We talk about how there's three new playoff teams or whatever the number is, and
Yeah.
why or the divisions aren't going to shake out the same as they do every other year. I feel like this is one of those divisions that could definitely play out differently than it has the past few years. And I feel like the Cardinals are that team that are the most complete out of everybody in this division as of right now.
Yeah, it's funny because while you were talking about their odds to win the division, I popped over to FanDuel, and as I'm looking at it, it went from 400 to 390. So either you live streamed this pod on accident, um, or they're listening. So
I'm listening.
um, they're listening. But no, I think you're right. I don't think that um, I think there's not a clear cut like the gap between these teams is not that substantial. Um, and like I mentioned, they just don't have as many questions as a lot of these other teams. I also have them winning the division. I don't feel great about the Rams with Matt Stafford. I know that the Niners were a dumpster fire last season as far as injuries go, and it just kind of seems like it's starting to leak over into this season, like I mentioned. And
Yeah,
then
it's
who knows
they
what the hell we're going to get with Seattle.
Yeah. The 49ers situation's so crazy. It just feels like every year they're so injured. Like
Yeah,
they need to fire their training staff or something. It's
yeah,
just feels like they're always
they do.
hurt.
It's ridiculous. I know this is a football podcast, but it feels like the Niners are almost like equivalent to the Yankees from a few years ago because it felt like every single player on the Yankees was getting hurt for an extended period of time, and it's just so frustrating to deal with that as a fan because you're like, yeah, you can deal with an injury or two to your team, but like when you're fighting and scrapping to get guys out there like week in and week out, like you just don't even feel like there's a shot sometimes.
Well, it's crazy. They'll like sign Equanimous St. Brown, and then it's like he's on the IR for the season. And then it's like Demarcus Robinson's out for the first 3 games of the season for a suspension. And like
Yeah.
it just seems like no matter what, like they just keep kind of getting dirted a little bit. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting situation. So what's your prediction for this Arizona Cardinals 2025 season?
Sorry. Yeah, I have them going 10-7 and winning this division.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I know. I
The
think I
Cardinals are
think with
back.
I think with the way that last season shook up, there was a couple plays that kept them from winning 10, 11 games last year. And I think with the improvements that they've made to the defensive side of the ball, you're going to get those bounces going your way this season. Like,
I'm right
just
with
looking
you.
at this, their turnover margin was -3. I think their defense got significantly better. And I think if you bump that, say they win the turnover battle and it's at +5, they win two of those games. Hypothetically, of course.
Hypothetically. Hey,
And where does that put them? That puts them at 10-7 last season.
I
I
hope
think
so.
this is a
I really do.
realistic 10-17. I hope
I
so
want to
too,
pick
because
them to win.
we've been on the Cardinals. We have been just like pushing. Obviously, you're a fan, but we've just been pushing for the Cardinals to like finally get there. And I feel like this is like the year where they finally jump into the playoffs.
I feel like we've been dead accurate though, like on the analysis of the Cardinals, like the entire time. So that's like where I would like that is like what I would say to you. Like, do you agree with that? Like,
Yeah,
I feel like everything that we've ever said about the Cardinals has just been dead on accurate. And like, we obviously, like, even last year when we went to predict the Cardinals, I was like, this team could be a sleeper. I want to pick them to be that team to go worst to first, but they're not there yet, quite yet.
yeah,
And
yeah.
like that's exactly what happened last season. Like, and
Hmm.
then we obviously talked about them during the season and after the season, and they kind of done everything that we've predicted. So I feel like our expectations for the Cardinals have been like pretty accurate over the years.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like this is like one of the teams that we have a pretty good pulse on every single
Yes.
season.
All right. Well, Cardinals to win the division plus 390, plus 400. If you're at some other books, I mean, you might as well place it. That's a great bet. I mean,
Couldn't agree more. The Kyler Murray plus what 5,000 to win MVP.
yeah.
I mean, I think the other one here also. I think we should consider. There was some pretty good defensive players drafted. Never mind.
Yeah.
I was
Tons.
gonna throw
And
in.
he's hurt.
Yeah. I was gonna throw in maybe consider. It, it would also be really difficult to win Defensive Player of the Year as a rookie corner if you're not getting like
Will Johnson.
crazy interceptions. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, maybe.
Because we were spot on. Like he's a first round cornerback, and they got him mid second round, like steal.
Still excited about that one.
Did your Will Johnson jersey arrive yet?
No, not yet. I need a Marv one, and then I'll think about Will.
I just spit it. Good girl, we're getting paper as a passion. Collect the stacks and bring it back, man, and take